And we're live. Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I am your host, Vinay, with my co-host, Raj. Raj, the NBA season is over and there was no champion. I am shocked. That's the first time it's ever happened. I guess we're just going to take this season and just throw it away and not think anything of it and just move forward. We don't need to cover anything about the playoffs. I think we've talked about our learnings and all that sort of stuff. But since the last time we passed, there was a lot of stuff that happened. But before we get into that stuff, I want to ask you, because yesterday was a day on Twitter and on social media in general, because Kendrick Lamar held a concert and he held a pop-out concert at the Kia Forum.
Yes.
And that was the talk. I was watching, I watch people play video games on YouTube while I work because it's a nice background noise. And I watch this guy, Dr. Disrespect, because he's just his production. He's a funny guy. I don't know if you know who he is.
Nope.
But even he was talking about it. And I think he's so far removed from the genre that I was like, dude, why is this guy talking about it? So let's start there. How are you doing? How are you doing, my brother? How are you doing 24 hours after that concert?
It's funny because every time something like this happens, I guess you know how they say manhood, my LA hood gets like questioned in question. Like, Raj, you're from LA. I am from LA. I enjoyed actually most of that concert. And I feel like most of that, Vinay, was people going up there more repping Los Angeles than actually being involved in like a back and forth. Obviously, Kendrick was very poignant with his songs and they were very direct. And they had an opponent that they were going to reach. But I feel like everyone else was kind of there just to enjoy LA. A lot of, guys who haven't performed in a while. Dr. Dre obviously coming out. I'm a big fan of DJ Mustard. Seen him a few times in LA. In Vegas, excuse me. He plays a lot of Drake songs, by the way, in his sets that weren't last night, but he does usually. But no, I think that was cool. It was a cool moment. I think 5 times is a little excessive. Like, I think there's no reason to play the song 5 straight times. But other than that, I thought it was like a really cool show. A lot of people from LA came out. DeMar DeRozan, Russ obviously was on stage.
Of course.
I think LeBron tried to hide, but there's cameras in every inch of that stadium, so they were gonna find
he's 6'9", bro. There's nowhere he could hide ever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and so he was, in the background. He was not on stage, but no, cool moment for LA. I hope people just understand this is like a hip hop moment, and instead of just looking at this as like a 4-0 sweep, like a 3-1 kind of, there was like a win in there somewhere. But it was fun, man. That was cool. Hopefully we can move forward now.
Yeah. I would like this topic to leave the timeline altogether. I think you and I have both been kind of off Twitter for a while, especially since the Lakers got bounced from the playoffs and just kind of tapping in here and there. But this topic has not died, and we're kind of now at a point where it's just like, okay, I think we can put a button on this unless somebody decides to re-engage. Either one of the parties decides to re-engage. I thought it was a cool moment. I grew up in LA. I grew up in Gardena. I grew up in Inglewood. Those are all places that are very special to me. When my family first immigrated here from India, when I was like 2 years old, that's where we lived. And it's very, very cool to see that sort of regional unity anywhere. Like when they do like those verses, and they had like all the New York and then the Southeast guy, like that's really cool to see a regional kind of unity. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was a real cool moment. But we're not hip hop analysts, we're basketball analysts. And before we actually get into the news of the day, which is JJ Redick, we finally have our coach that we've been waiting on for about 2 months now, which you and I, for the folks that regularly watch Lakers Detailed, we've talked about JJ extensively and have done some deep dive stuff on just kind of how we think some of this stuff might hash out. And we'll cover some of that. But we haven't spoken on this since, but a Laker legend, Jerry West, passed away. So I did want to make sure that we acknowledge that, condolences to his family. It's been a few days since it's happened. One of the most brilliant basketball minds I've ever had a chance. I've gotten a chance to talk to him before when I attended SBC at Vegas Summer League, and very wonderful person. And his basketball mind is incredible. The way he talks about the game, the way he analyzes the game, the things that he says matter and things that don't matter. A guy of his stature, it's really amazing. But overall, a really, really good human being. And one of the most important things that I could share with the folks on the pod is one of the things he told me is, I think we've said it before, but like basketball, the sports business is a relationship business. Whether you're in
Sure.
media or you're an agent or you're a player or you work for an organization. And one of the things that Jerry said that always sticks to me is how you treat people matters and
Hmm.
relationships matter. And that should always be something that's part of your life. So condolences to his family, Laker legend. You know, tough to see him pass.
Yeah, 100%. I remember like I think it was the arena show and he was kind of talking about how many of the NBA legends just don't work for the team that they provided so much for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like not to make this about that, it's just, you look at, Larry Bird not really with Boston, right? Like you can go down the list and Jerry West again finishing his career as a Clipper. Yeah, very sad news. And like I think Paul George talk about looked healthy like the last time they saw him. So you just never know. I hope he found peace.
Oh yeah,
Right, seems like a guy that was very depressed. Like, and he's spoken about the depression that he's kind of gone through. But I'm
yeah,
hopeful, like at the end of his life, he was able to kind of find peace in what he actually did achieve. Right, seems like a guy that was obviously it's what you want in competitors and what we want in our like athletes, but seems like a guy that really took that to heart. So legend, a Laker legend. It was sad that they weren't able to mend the fences. It doesn't sound like the bridges were ever recreated. But hopefully, he's remembered how he should be. Has a statue outside.
yeah,
Part of just he's pretty much in the blood of almost every Laker championship, right?
yeah,
Like then like very the first few, but after that he had a hand in all of them. Obviously, stealing Shaq, taking Shaq from Orlando, maneuvering for the Kobe, getting Kobe, and then obviously the title he won as a player, and just him as a guy who's giving information to the Clippers, to the Warriors, to the Grizzlies, building them up. So just a basketball psychopath, competitive mf'er that I'm just hopeful he found peace. So rest in peace
yeah,
to the great
yeah.
Jerry West.
Rest in peace to Jerry West. So yeah, let's continue on with the news, Raj. We finally have some closure. We have some
Mm,
conclusion to all of the stuff that's been going on with um, the Lakers coaching search. For I would say about a month ago, our guy Shams, back in early May, was telling everybody that JJ was the guy. You and I heard about it around that time. We had kind of heard in the back channels that um, JJ was going to be the coach. I mean, we don't go out there and broadcast anything. I don't think we position ourselves as insiders or anything like that. But the word that was coming out from the organization is that they really like JJ. And as this has progressed, the timeline has progressed. Dan Hurley got introduced as a potential candidate. And then obviously James Borrego is also somebody Borrego is somebody who's been mentioned. There's been a few different names. David Adelman's been made. Mike Nouri's been mentioned.
sure.
But from I think what we both heard the entire time, it was always JJ. Like there was a lot of conviction in that pick. There has been a very funny thing that's been going on over the past 2 months, where both the Lakers organization has kind of made it seem like it was a very extensive and grueling, and they
Hmm.
vetted a ton of different sources, this sort of thing. And then there's the other part where Rich Paul decides to do interviews every 2 weeks, telling people, no, Braun doesn't have anything to do with this. And look, as fans, we don't care. We just want to know who our coach is going to be so that we can move forward with the next process. And JJ is here. Dan Hurley is not here. Shams was always right from the beginning. So shout out to Shams repping for us and making sure that he stands his ground and takes his victory lap, which he certainly should. He should get his flowers. And Woj, I thought it was cosmic irony. I don't know what you want to call it, but like it was funny that Woj was the one that said that had to break the news that
Yeah,
JJ was agreeing with us. But where are you at now? What are your feelings about the saga? Or do
yeah.
you even care? How do you feel right now about Coach JJ Redick?
Yeah, I guess I'm glad it's done. I really wasn't someone on like my pins and needles waiting for this to happen. I kind of understood the process that needed to play out. Vinay, the only part that I'm annoyed at is like the Dan Hurley situation. It was just this blimp in the radar in this. I just would have rather not known about it. And then obviously the press tour they did post decision basically, and his wife going on TV and talking about how emotional it was to turn down $70 million. I don't usually get mad online. Like I'm usually pretty calm, but that one really, took me for a ride. Like just have read the room, just the room that the country you're in. But other than that, like I understood the process. I think the Lakers want this to look like an extensive search. They fired their last, two head coaches in very short order. This was an important decision, Finay. This is a big decision. You're behind a coach that obviously has very little experience. He's now going to be compared to a college coach and the wins and losses of that college coach gets. But I'm glad it's done. And the sourcing back and forth, we talked about the rap beef earlier. It feels like there was a Shams and Woj like rap
Always.
beef that the Lakers were playing like the J. Cole and they're like, "Hey, we just want to choose our coach. Like, can y'all fight over there?" And they're having their own kind of battle within. But I told you on this show and other shows that like I've been on the JJ Redick train. I've liked him more than any of the candidates that I've heard at all. Like obviously I didn't know who Dan Hurley. I knew who he was, but didn't know he was a Laker kind of universe. But I liked him over Borrego. I liked him over Kenny Atkinson. Obviously Monty Williams got fired the other day, but a guy that I never really would have liked to have the head coaching job. So bring on JJ Redick. Man, we have a lot of mind the game to mine back into and dive into. And I said here as well, I said that conversation sounds so different when you go back and you parse through that as coach to player. It's a very different podcast. So I kind of recommend if people who have enough time as I do to go through and go back and listen to some of those. But I'm excited, man. I think it's good. JJ's a very young coach, not even 40 yet, I believe. I think he's 39 years old.
Yeah.
We can get into the specifics, but I'm glad. I think this was the best guy the best candidate available, and they got their guy. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a coach. I'm fine with JJ. I think before I wipe my Twitter, my annual Twitter wipe, I was basically tweeting that it's a good thing that you have a coach that's on board, that your star player is on board with. And this is a little bit different because we've gotten a look through the podcast. We've gotten a look at just kind of how much more of a personal relationship, basketball relationship he has with LeBron. And I think that means a lot. And I think that's a very important thing because buy-in from your superstar, like it's a very cliche thing to say a coach has to get buy-in from the superstars. Every coach has to do that for any team that has superstars or like a young superstar. But Lakers are in a very unique situation because our superstars, one of them has been in the league for 20 years. And he's been in the league for as long as JJ's played and retired, and our star is still in the league. So it's not like coaching an Anthony Edwards. It's not like coaching a Jason Tatum. Those guys are younger. They may be a little bit more receptive to coaching. Whether it's like tough love coaching or hey, accountability coach. Hey, you didn't rotate here. What's going on? That sort of thing. Not to say that Braun isn't accountable. He certainly is. But sometimes, somebody of Braun's stature and his IQ might push back a little bit more, or he might think a little differently of what he's being told. And that goes the same for AD, because one thing I think you and I have mentioned multiple times, Braun and AD have said multiple times in post games that they know what it takes to get back to the mountaintop. And it's not something that I take lightly. So I think it's important that you have a coach that's willing to listen to what they have to say. Now, if we don't execute or something like that happens, that's different. That's just, players not executing what it is. But we need a coach that's on the same page with what they want, what they need to have be for them to be successful. So I'm okay with it.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, like, I think it's funny because I think the comparisons that he gets is like Derek Fisher, right? Derek Fisher came very quickly out from playing into coaching. Obviously Jason Kidd as well. Also Steve Nash as well as the other one that gets named. The difference to me, but it's my kind of theory and I guess my copium or optimism that I'm looking through the glass of JJ through. I think JJ's just due to his job and his nature of his media kind of responsibilities. He's more like detailed into the league than they were. Like I think he follows the league in a way that they just didn't. And there's like a level of of wonder and still being a student of the game that I just think those guys weren't, right? Like, and nothing against those guys. I think Steve Nash got the job because him and Katie and Kyrie are close. Derek Fisher got the Knicks job because Phil Jackson, that was his point guard. And Derek Fisher actually proved to be just not a good professional coach. Went to the Knicks, went to the Sparks, is now coaching, I think, high school, basketball. That I think he's thriving in that role. But that's where I see a difference with JJ. Like I think he's out again. This doesn't mean he'll be good. Like anyone having like I think a super hard stance on what he'll be at. Like I just think that's incorrect. The last like 6 coach of the years have been fired, or are on different teams and they won it in. The only 2, Vinay, I was checking, I think in the last 8 years, the only 2 coaches that won coach of the year that are still on the team that they won it was 2023 Mike Brown, who just had a fight for his contract extension, by the way. And then Tom Thibodeau in 2021, which is what, 4 years ago. So those are the only coaches that are like still on their same team from there. So JJ, it's still a dice roll. I just like at least what I look for, the parameters of this, a guy that's at least engaged in the league. They're pushing this as Anthony Davis's decision. We can speak later on if you buy that or not, but they're very much pushing that heavily out into the spaces, that this is very much an AD decision. This is very much AD calling the shots on this. But in any case, I think at least JJ is a very more prepared and just understands the league a little better. Do you agree with that? I guess like that, comparison of him versus other, I guess, first time head coaches that have come into the league.
Yeah, I think so. I think Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd is a really brilliant basketball mind to himself. Like he's one of the most established, successful point guards. I mean, he's in my top 5 point guards of all time. Just because any team he ever won on, they just instantly got better, even without a huge talent infusion, just because he was doing all the smart things, right things, whatever. I think, my stance on this, I'm with you. I don't think you can say with any certainty that he's going to be good or he's going to be bad, because it's basically he's a wild card. He's an unknown. We don't know what it's going to be like. I think I think he's in a very unique position, and this is also why I think the relationship with LeBron matters, because he's basically going to have a relationship with the star player where the star player can probably be open and candid with him about what the team needs from a coaching perspective. And I think that's a good thing. Like ever since JJ's been brought up as a potential as the potential hire, Lakers Twitter has been divided. Like it's just turned into Braun fans saying that this is going to be, he's just going to blame LeBron if this doesn't work out. And then on the other side, it's, them, the Laker fans or whatever fan base saying, well, this is all, they're just doing this to appease LeBron. And there might be some grain of truth in either one of those sides of the argument, but there's also something in the middle here. Like, I don't think this is just one side or the other side. I think there is an actual relationship between the coach and the star player. And I think one of the things that's going to be helpful from a human perspective is that it's not just the player buying in. I think there is some back and forth between LeBron and JJ that can happen. Now, do they keep the respect, the coach-player respect? Or, can the coach keep the player accountable? We can touch on that. We've touched on it a little bit. I don't know if that's going to happen because it's very hard to force somebody you have a friendship with on a personal level to be accountable on a professional level, right? So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I think this is good for JJ. He's a blank slate. He probably won't have everything figured out from the start. It sounds like the Lakers are going to try and get him more established guys so that he can build regimen and routine. And I think Braun will help him because obviously he wants him to succeed. He did a podcast with him. Like, I'm sure he wants the guy to succeed. I think Braun will help him in that respect. Hey, this is what Ham used to do. We don't need to do this. We need more of this other thing that he wasn't doing enough of, or this is what Vogel used to do. We need more of this because that's what these guys need. That's where I need your help. That's sort of it. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. And like, I think with like the way I look at this is I don't think JJ will be bad because of a lack of preparation or a lack of attention to detail. Right. And that's stuff I can live with. I think he didn't have to be coerced into coaching. It's a thing he wanted to be done. Right. He wanted to get into coaching. Like, again, not to compare him, but I think Monty kind of had to be coerced by a huge, dollar figure that, eventually was not worth it. Well, I mean, he's the one that got fired, but at least when I look at with JJ, I think at least he's a guy that I think will at least be prepared. And I like that you said it's a positive because I think it's being sold as a negative, Vinay, that like him and 100%. LeBron have this relationship. And obviously LeBron's running very far from it. Rich Paul is running very far from it. And I understand why, right? The Westbrook trade kind of, I think, spawned a lot of this who wants to take responsibility for, deals that were made during that time. I just like, there's no way me and you do this, and obviously I think most people who do podcasts know, like, the podcast doesn't end when you stop recording, right? There's
100%.
conversations that go on, and I'm looking
Yeah.
at the Lakers schedule. Episode 1 came out March 18th, and we have like a loss to Indiana in there somewhere, and there's just human. You just mentioned the Jerry West quote, everything's about relationships. There's just no way there wasn't some JJ, like, if we did this, or like, and like, why did you lose that game? Oh, like, if we did this, or we did this, or like, these conversations happen. So it's nice that two people, at least LeBron, I think, respects JJ on a basketball acumen level, and respects, obviously, enough to do a podcast with him. And again, podcast has such a negative connotation these days because it's seen as something that anybody can just flip on a camera and do, right? But I think in this scenario, LeBron wouldn't do it with someone that he doesn't respect. And like, JJ's already talked about his assistants and stuff that's coming on. But before that, I'm glad that the Lakers went with a young guy and not a retread. JJ's experience is not his podcasting; it's the 15 years in the league, right? Like, that's the real experience. The podcast, I think, just displayed the talent, the acumen that he learned in the league, and he's able to kind of articulate himself in a way that a lot of guys can't. But I think it just showed kind of his basketball knowledge and able to kind of adapt. And I think it's why a lot of players connect to him. Chris Paul very much connected to him, right? Chris Paul, another psycho competitive MFer that you can hate. I know you hate him, but like, a lot of people really have a hate for Chris Paul. But I think, like, at least he saw, like, at least they can tap into like a basketball level. So I'm excited, man. I'm glad. I hope JJ coaches summer league in a few weeks. We'll see what happens with the draft and all that. But I think the Lakers got the right guy.
Yeah, yeah. I think of all the people available, there's certainly guys that had more experience that were available. But like I said, like, if you're going to go in a drastic direction and really try to change the foundation, look, then you go in the direction of somebody who's a little bit more unknown. And if it's successful, everybody will be happy. And if it's not successful, I'm sure Lakers Twitter will be hurling insults at each other after every loss. But Raj, you brought up something that I do want to bring up. There is a human part of this that I think people are very dismissive of because they don't respect the human part of basketball. And I think that's something that you can't ignore that. And I would say for both our previous coaches, even though there was basketball success to some degree, or to a great degree, Vogel winning a championship, Ham going to the Western Conference Finals, when the human part of the game fell apart between the coach and the roster that was on the team, when that broke apart, that's when the Lakers let both of those coaches go. Like, we can turn around and say as much as we like that, oh, we lost in the first round to the Nuggets, that's why we lost. That's why Ham got fired. That's not why. In my opinion, I don't think that's why Ham got fired. I think Ham got fired because the the personal relationship that he had, the way that he carried out his conversations with the media and presented, the Laker organization, or presented himself or the team, was more combative than it really should have been. Those are all human things that you can't always guarantee that a certain candidate is going to be taken over. I think with JJ, and we've spoken on this before, I think some of those things get kind of cleared away to some degree. I think you've seen JJ be on the podcast. You've seen him be very frank, about certain things. Like, hey, look, this is just not a good play. Like, we don't need to sugarcoat who's responsible for what. This is not a good play. This is bad execution, XYZ, whatever it is. But then there's an added layer with JJ too as well, where he's media trained. He knows what it is. When a reporter is asking you a question that's really about something else, like, he knows what that is. And because he's been a player and he's also been in media, we've seen him get upset on ESPN when conversations go from away from basketball and more into like blame game or legacy talk, or they don't get asked that in post games, but we've seen many, many times that happen with Los Angeles media and Laker coaches. And that is something that humanness has to be respected, because that is a very, very important quality of being a Laker head coach. And of course, wins on the floor matter. Of course, buy-in matters. All that. The basketball always matters. But for the Lakers brand, the being the face of the Lakers, which JJ Redick is going to be. Like they're
Oh, yeah.
positioning him, they're calling him a young Pat Riley, slick back.
Eric
People, I'm
Spoelstra.
already seeing
Yes.
stuff on my timeline. I hope he wears a suit every time he comes to the game. Like presentation, marketing matters, presentation matters, and you got to carry yourself that way. I think JJ is going to do a really good job on that front.
I do too, and I'm not pushing back on what you said. I think there's a difference, Renee, because you just mentioned this. You see this on First Take a little bit, right? The inkling comes out. I think he did it once and was never invited on again. But like the competitive nature comes out. Like media versus like coaching is as close I think as players will get to like back to being playing in an NBA environment, right? That competitiveness comes out. That's a level of JJ Redick that's very like his temperament can get very crazy sometimes, and you never know how that translates until he's the head coach. I remember Vinay, if you remember Steve Kerr, and this is I think the comparison that the Lakers want most, right? Steve Kerr came right from, he obviously was an executive with Phoenix, but that's not when he got the Warriors job. He got the Warriors job as a announcer on TNT. He was actually announcing Lakers Suns games, which is just very funny, in conference finals 2010. And then he got the Warriors job, I think in 2015 or whatever it is. I remember when he first got the job, and they don't have it anymore. There was the Orlando Summer League. And if you remember this, they used to do Orlando Summer League. Steve Kerr got a tech like first play of the game. This is first time coaching the Warriors. Like I'm not comparing those two. I just think like once you get into that, and Steve Kerr, a very mild mannered media guy, but like stepped in the coaching and like right away became a psycho killer. So I'm very interested to see how like JJ works, because some players don't respond to that, right? And I don't know, like a first time head coach can go in and yell the way that a coach probably sometimes needs to. And I think Darvin Ham, like you just spoke about, probably leaned too far one way, right? Like in terms of being a very strict kind of Army lieutenant kind of in the locker room. And like Darvin was 50 years old, obviously older than JJ, been in the league 20 years, right? Probably some philosophies that are outdated. Probably, and this is not to like backhand, talk about Darvin Ham, but probably some philosophies that are a little outdated in terms of what works in the modern league. But we'll see with Jay. I think it's interesting. I know he's media trained and we've spoken about that. It's a different ball game once you get into like once you have like 50 cameras. Like JJ, even as a player, was not. He was at Duke, but like in the league, he was not that type of player. Laker head coach post game after a loss, every move is dictated. Like JJ already gets fiery at people on Twitter, like questioning some of the stuff. Imagine like a reporter asks, "Why did you make that timeout?" And like a quick fire back of like, "Are you playing?" Like there's little stuff like that, like that I'm sure will come up. But I think it's going to be very fascinating. And then I think you just don't know until he's there manning a locker room and doing all those things for the first time.
Yeah, I think my general attitude has been like, this is going to be an entertaining season. Like if we win, it's going to be entertaining because there's going to be people fighting with each other for who deserves credit for the Lakers being successful. And if it goes bad, Raj, JJ's going to be like they're going to meme that pod with my guy Zane. He's in the Discord too. That I think I retweeted one of his photoshops. He took a Photoshop of JJ and Braun in like the same like kind of picture in picture that we have here.
Right.
And he photoshopped them in the locker. It was so good. Like people are going to be memeing it, and I think it's going to be entertaining regardless. But you brought up something, Raj, that I think warrants some discussion. There has been since the hire. I wouldn't say it was beforehand too much, but since the hire has been kind of official, there has been this kind of push here where not push, but there's this story that's come out that AD was very involved with signing off on this JJ thing, JJ Redick. And it went so far as to, I'll find it as I get your thoughts on this. I'll try and find all the different bullet points. But the report came out that like JJ wants to prioritize getting AD the ball towards the end of games and XYZ and all that sort of stuff. So before I give my thoughts on that, I want to ask you your thoughts about it. What are your thoughts about that? About him being this JJ's an AD hire. He's not just an AD hire, obviously, but like, what do you think about that? Those two specific statements. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely there's a world where both things can be true, right? Like I think it can be a very much AD hire, and I think it's also very much overextending to make sure people don't believe this is just a LeBron hire, right? And I think that's how it looks out from the outside. I think it's why the Lakers wanted to take their time, right? It's why they wanted to take their time with the meetings and show like, hey, we brought this guy in and we did, a real docs, and we really did investigate on him and look into him and make a decision as a collective rather than just yeah, we saw episode 3, 4, and 5 and went like, yeah, bring that guy in, right? Like, so like I think both things can be true. Look, I think it's important that this is true. I think it is important that Anthony Davis was involved. I think building around 2024 AD is very different than 2020 AD. Right? I think those are two completely different players that you need to understand kind of what AD's game is and what makes him going and how many times we grabbed our head and like why is AD not involved and and all these questions that we had. So yeah, but I don't know if you found the quotes yet, but I'm glad that this is the AD decision. I also don't believe this is fully AD calling the shots on this, but
Yeah.
I'm glad he's involved at least in this decision.
Yeah, so I'm reading an aggregation from Shams' article. So if it's not exactly, blame the aggregator. I'm not going to tell you who the aggregator is. It's the Lakers aggregator. I just don't have time to pull up the login and to the Athletic and do it. But basically, the quote is, JJ Redick's plan is to focus on leveraging AD, particularly in late game situations, and reducing LeBron's ball handling duties to keep him fresh for the playoffs. It's also reported that Anthony Davis was involved in the hiring process and was supportive of Redick. And then the last thing it looks like it says here is that Redick will look to develop Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and Max Christie. Okay, so all right, so you already know. You already
Picking
know.
names.
Yeah. You already know what direction. So for the folks that don't know, Raj and I are in a group chat with some different folks, and I'm not going to tell you who those folks are, but there was a very spirited discussion about the Lakers role players today, and why certain players were named, why certain players weren't named, and whatnot. And it was a very productive discussion. It was nothing combative. But before we get to the role player stuff, this thing about leveraging AD at the end of games, I like that, but I'm also a little concerned it's lip service. That's one of my concerns because we know what happens. Like we've seen this team. Okay. Like this is now gone on for 6-7 years, 2 different coaches. Like I'm very, very much aware of just kind of what's going on. Like I understand that we want to play through AD. And I hope that we do, especially on the games where he's like locked in. There's been many games, even in the playoffs, where AD's kind of brought us home, running the pick and roll action and feeding him out of that and then whatever it ends up being. And I hope that happens. But a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times it's just ISO ball and give it to either LeBron or AD, or maybe whoever has a hot hand in the moment and just kind of let them cook. That's just what it is. So it's a very blanket statement that's been said, that we want to leverage AD in late game situations. But also AD has his flaws. If he's not having a good jump shooting game, that's a problem. You can't really leverage him as much as you'd like to if he's not scoring in that capacity. So my only pushback about this is I don't need it. Putting it in writing does nothing for me. Like I have to actually see it in the game because I haven't seen it in the game, and we've had 2 separate coaches now, and we've never I don't want to say never. We've certainly done it in some games, but for the most part, we've never done this. So this would be a drastic change for that.
So I just
am I being fair when I say that? Is it a fair way of responding to that statement?
Well, I'll say is I just found this right now. 2 years ago when Darvin Ham got hired, per Chris Haynes, Darvin Ham set to run offense through Anthony Davis, and LeBron James concurs or agrees, right? And look, I think it's a great idea. Let's just put it blunt. Like, it's nothing against AD. Like, it's very tough to run an offense through a player that can't shoot, right? And AD's gotten better as a passer, but like the amount of how well you have to be as a passer, as a big man, to run your offense through you, like those are like very much Jokic's and a little bit of Embiid's. And I don't think AD needs to have the offense fully run through him. I think there's a middle line here, like there's a line in the middle where he just needs to be more involved. But to your point, like this was put in writing 2 years ago when Darvin Ham got fired, and I think it lasted like a week or so, 2 weeks or whatever it was, and like the heat of the moment, the heat of the battle, it's very easy for JJ and LeBron, and I think they're being sincere. Yeah, no, run the offense through Anthony Davis, or run the offense through Austin Reeves and D'Lo or whatever it is. But once like the scoreboard is tied and there's 5 minutes left, it's a different conversation during that time.
Yeah.
But for right now in June, very easy to write down whatever you want to write down. I don't think either any parties are being insincere or are being just trying to lie to the public. I think it's very easy, to your point, to write that right now. AD does need to be involved more. I think there are creative ways to get him the basketball more. I think there are places you can have conversations with him of where he likes the ball. He just did a podcast with a gaming podcast. No idea.
Yeah, I think with some esports guys, some FaZe Clan guys. I only recognize them by face because I see their ads.
AD really does not care at all about anything.
Isn't that fascinating? Like
it's the most craziest thing in the world. Just does not go on any basketball show. Like could care less about the actual like basketball universe that exists online. He is in a universe that actually has its own universe, right? It's a universe, and then it's like a gaming universe within the like. I'm not a video game person, but like I guess they have like crews in the video game world.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, like if you call it, like me and my buddies, we play Call of Duty. We haven't played. I haven't played in a while, but there'll be like 6 of us, and we don't even play Warzone. We play like multiplayer because we're just talking about our days and making jokes, making fun of each other, and whatnot.
For sure. And I don't know, do those gaming people understand? Like they have Anthony freaking Davis on their show, and people are like aggregating it, to hell without them knowing. But yeah, like I would like for the offense to run a little bit more through AD. I think it's a fallacy to think that like the whole offense is just gonna be handed to him like he's Jokic or whoever it is. But no, it's fine for JJ to say that. I like that, and I think that's probably what he put into the meetings of like, this is what I can do, and this is what I believe this team can be with the players that are currently on the roster. And I'm sure AD was a big part of that. I'm sure did JJ and AD, I don't think ever crossed paths. I'm pretty sure AD was gone by the time JJ went to New Orleans. Yeah, JJ played with Zion, so there's no, I don't think there's any cross paths. But I'm sure 15 years in the league, you're gonna meet the guy in some capacity, have some relationship. So hopefully, that statement was true, that AD was involved.
No, I think AD is involved. It's just, it's funny. I was going to ask you that question because it kind of, he doesn't. Again, it's the off season, so he's going to do whatever he wants to do. So who cares? It's like I can't tell. Like I think Kevin Durant plays Call of Duty like every single day. But he's in the gym every single morning. So I'm sure AD's doing the same exact thing. Most professional athletes who care about being good at their craft are doing something like that. So it does. The podcasting doesn't bother me. It's always just kind of funny because it's just like he never gives off the vibe. And again, this is just me speculating from the outside in, but it's just like never gives me the vibe that he's like basketball is like means a lot to him. Like I'm sure it does. It 100% does. But like that maniacal competitor kind of basketball person, like that picture that went viral of Katie in a Vegas club. Right. Jump shots, that's just like, okay, that guy's a psychopath, right? Like that makes a lot of sense that he'd do something like that. I never get that vibe from AD. That's why sometimes when people say that like AD's really involved in the coaching thing, I was just like, is he? Like, did you just like text him like, hey? And I think there was a thing that where like JJ's only like had a phone call with him or something like that. It's not like he's like sat down and discussed X's and O's and stuff like that. So I never know what the capacity to that is. So I'm with you. Like, it's all great to write that stuff in June and tell us that's what it's going to be. But when we actually see it on the floor, that's when we'll know what really happens. Go ahead.
Real quick on AD, because him and D'Lo did a podcast, right? I think D'Lo into his house, and one quote that was in there that really just slid by, and it's nothing bad. It's just he was giving D'Lo a tour, and Vinay, he goes, "Yeah, I got the sauna and the weight room here, so I never have to go to the facility." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess you don't want to go. Like it's just." Like it's so bad you built your own sauna, and like he's like, so I never really have to go to the facility. I can get all my work done here. I was like, oh man, like I guess like good for you, AD. No, it's funny. Yeah, he doesn't give off the guy that's like watching Bucks Hornets right on League Pass, like maybe he is.
Bron lets you know he's a maniac. Like him doing this podcast with JJ, discussing things over wine to this degree. Like the dude's clearly a maniac. Like when it comes to
Uh,
basketball. So
uh, absolutely, and I think you have to be to a certain extent to be as good as AD, right?
absolutely.
There's a level of like psychoticness that you need to have, but definitely he definitely feels more the Kawhi like vibe of just hooping, and I don't see any of your stuff online, and like it
Just
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 it
check hits his time card, checks in,
right
checks
right
out
right 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 yeah, and look, I think everyone who speaks about AD says he's a competitive mf'er and
for
hates
sure.
losing more than anyone, and I agree with that. I just every your last tweet shouldn't be Call of Duty. Like 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 engage a
Anyways,
little bit, just a
yeah,
bit,
yeah.
just a bit.
We're poking. It's just you notice it. That's all. It doesn't mean anything. You just
It
notice it.
doesn't.
That's
No,
yeah.
it's just
Just what it
it'd
is.
be
But so
nice.
I'll be interested to see how much we can actually run through that. This there is this other part also, Raj, that I do think that we should discuss. Reducing LeBron's ball handling duties. This has been a
Mm,
thing since. I mean, this was the reason why the Russell Westbrook trade happened. Like the reason
mhm,
why they traded for Westbrook was to reduce LeBron's ball handling duties. Like that was the entire idea behind it. They thought that they could get a high volume guy, a high usage guy who can handle running the offense for long. Obviously, tons of stuff happened. The experiment didn't work. Um, we've seen in the playoffs that Braun can make it work where he's kind of not invading the offense or taking over the offense too much over 3 quarters. Then he kind of locks in for the last. Um, Braun's going to be 40. I think this is a very valid thing that the Lakers should be, because especially in the regular season, about ball handling duties. Um, but there's also an issue here, Raj, that it's
mm.
it's a basketball issue, not a personal issue, not anything else. So Braun fans, you don't have to hold your breath. I'm not going to say anything bad about Braun. There's a basketball issue. Um,
Okay.
in my mind, LeBron is always going to average his 25, 7, and 7. And in order to be able to average those numbers, not saying that he's trying to just average the stats, but in order to be an impactful guy and to have that kind of impact on the court, there's a sort of a baseline level of ball handling that you're going to have to do. And a lot of the times, and I think this last season, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at usage rates, were some of the lowest usage rates that LeBron has had as a player. And even then, I mean, when we had D'Lo, we had Austin, and we had LeBron on the floor when we did it. Like, we don't know if D'Lo is going to be there. Austin's role may increase as a result of D'Lo not being there too as well. I know his agent really wants that to happen. But the question now becomes like, what does that actually look like? Like, because I don't know if it's really possible to reduce Braun's on-ball responsibilities. Because what I've seen from him, in my opinion, what I've seen from him is he'll pick and choose when to be very attack the rim. He looks like he wants to do it like mainly in transition off of misses, because that's really he's still tremendous force. That he's still a freight train going down in transition, but in the half court, not as much, because teams are more physical with him. He doesn't get foul calls. The athleticism declined a little bit with the first step for him and stuff like that. Um, what do you think about that idea? Because
Yeah.
this is another one of those things in my mind where they say it, but I don't know if that's actually what's going to be what happens.
So I think that the quote, and I don't forgive me, I don't remember who spoke about it or sourced it or came out with it, but I guess the point was using LeBron more off the ball, using him more as like a screener, I believe, using more off ball actions to get him going. And I think that's the thing we saw, I think, as the season wound down last year. We saw him kind of be more of a ball screen guy for Austin, for D'Lo, and I think that's the place. Like that's where the gap is for LeBron to me. There's a place there for him to get more actions, I guess, working off the ball with our guards, and it depends on like what trade we make as well, right? If they're able to kind of upgrade from D'Lo, if they're able to kind of get if D'Lo's able to opt in and go get another guard, but even if he doesn't, I think just lowering his usage. LeBron played like 65 to 70 games last season. And I think and it was a lot on him to try to create on ball, and his usage was lower than it's ever been. And that's a place I think you can also go to AD, right? Try to run the offense a little bit more through AD. But I think like with JJ, he's going to come in and try to have some creative concepts, right? I think LeBron is kind of transitioning from a wing to more of a like 4-5, right? And I like when you transition from like a wing to like to a big, and I think that's the place where you can be a little bit more creative with this on ball stuff, and like where are you, I guess, creating the advantage. I think like where LeBron has an advantage next year, Vinay, is like in the post, right? He still has a size and power advantage over most guys. I think like leveraging that, other than leveraging like his speed at the perimeter, which we had to do a lot, right? A lot of the offense was, all right, here, LeBron, here's the ball at the top, try to beat your guy off the dribble. If you can kind of move him more as a screener, I guess, for Austin or for whoever you replace D'Lo with, that's the place. And I think JJ will like find creative concepts to do that. JJ is a very modern kind of offensive guy and has some sets to kind of work around that. I thought Darvin did, at least try to do a little bit of that as the season went on. But again, like it's tough to ask maybe the best, passer ever since Magic to like not be that or like play a different way. Right? Like is LeBron changing even in year 21? Like I don't know. Like you have to see what he is at 40 and what he still can and can't do. And he's talked about how I guess he's always wanted another guard next to him, and like we've tried D'Lo and Austin, and that those had, I think, defensive issues that the Lakers couldn't solve. And there's like a middle ground maybe of getting a guard that can kind of do both, to maybe play next to Austin, but it's tough. But using him as a screener, I guess using him more in the post, obviously still allowing, I think he led the league still in transition points last year, which is nuts. Like just straight up in transition baskets. Let him still do that. Have AD maybe bring the ball up a little bit to lower his usage. But like we talk about this all the time, Vinay. Like if you're making, like Shell in the chat say LeBron's going to opt out and resign. Like if you're making $50 million a year, like it's just like to win games in NBA, like there's only so much you can protect your stars. Like the league is just too good. Like it's just LeBron needs to be LeBron for the Lakers to do anything next year, and that includes in the regular season. There's ways to kind of maneuver around that, but the team is built around LeBron and AD still being LeBron and AD. Like there's ways to kind of leverage him off the ball and stuff like that, but I don't know. I go back and forth with this Vinay. LeBron's gonna need to be LeBron. Like there's no going around. Like he just is. Like you can't play LeBron $50 million and say, hey, have some guards that do what he does. Like it just that's not how the league works. So I don't know. But where are you at with that? Are like, do you think there's stuff that JJ can do? I think just LeBron as a screener a little bit more can kind of make some more creative offenses, but teams kind of switch a lot of those. So again, at least a lot of ISO ball. But I guess where are you at with that? With what JJ I guess can do for LeBron off the ball?
Yeah, I think I don't know how much he can be more creative in helping people, helping the players try and get a little bit more effective in like getting their shots and try to make the offense a little bit easier. But I'm not quite sure that he can make a guy who isn't good at something be good at something. And I think that requires a little bit of roster construction to be improved. And so I think I've openly said like many times before that like the head coach matters, but I think for this specific Lakers team, I think the roster construction has to matter a lot more. And that's just something that like I'm going to be very keen on trying to understand. I'm with you. I think there's like you can only not have LeBron involved so much, like there's this thing. There was this very combative question that I posed to a bunch of my friends, right? Like, and I think if Lakers fans answered this question very honestly, you might not like the answer, but it's something that we have to talk about. And I'll frame it to you like this. When we talk about Anthony Davis, he's a max contract star player. When Anthony Davis doesn't play up to his ability, what is it that we say? Like when he plays against Sabonis or Yusuf Nurkic, we say AD's got to be better. You can't be getting dominated by Sabonis. You can't have poor statistical games. You can't be getting bullied in the post, that sort of thing. You got to make, when it comes to the jump streak, you got to make your jump shot, or you got to find a way to be more effective offensively. Defensively, you got to be able to defend, crash rebounds, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff, right? Whenever AD's incapable of doing something or not able to do something, the general response is you're getting paid a max contract, you're a star player, figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take that same thing, same example, and you pose that question to LeBron, because LeBron is a star player, max contract, and I turn around and say, well, you got to box out or you got to do that. Usually the response isn't, yeah, you know what, Vinay, you're right. He's got to box out. No, you know what, you're right. He's got to attack. He's got to finish those layups. Like he's missing, easy open layups. Obviously when he gets fouled, that's a different story. But like, he's missing easy layups, that sort of thing. Like, but that's not the response that we give. Usually the response is, well, you need to get more playmaking to help LeBron out, or you need to go get a traditional center or somebody to do this because LeBron's not going to chase Harrison Barnes around here. He's not going to chase Michael Porter Jr. around. And the reason why I'm posing the question that way is because both players have limitations that we have to work through, and we have to acknowledge that. And I understand that one player's been there for however long he is, and nobody needs to explain to me why it is that we have to help support LeBron because of his advanced age and that sort of thing. But at the same time, to get to that point is a little bit trickier, and I don't know if the coach by himself can resolve that sort of thing. I think he can help mitigate some of it, meaning running a set probably helps. Giving role players better direction probably is a big part of that. Like, what was I think one thing when we did our game one analysis or game post game analysis, you and I talked about Ham sticking with D'Lo too much in game one.
Yeah.
I think D'Lo played like 41 minutes or something like that, and he wasn't having that great of a. He was okay. He wasn't having that great of a game. And you and I both said, I was like, maybe we should have gotten a defensive guy in that spot instead and given some of those possessions to Austin, stuff like that. And I think a coach can certainly help in that regards when it comes to it. But we have to acknowledge what limitations our players have also at the same time. And I think that's really important. And one of the things, it's not a limitation. It's something that you have to work around, is that there are going to be times where LeBron, because he's feeling good that day, because he's had rest for a couple days, maybe he's just energized by the crowd, whatever it is, he's going to want to take over games. And it may not be a close game. It might be sometime in the second quarter, third quarter. It might deviate from what our normal game plan would normally be because he's on a roll. Same thing with AD, not just LeBron. And we have to work through that. We have to figure out how to adjust to what's happening. I think that's where the coach helps. Is that a fair way of framing like the coach's impact in that regard?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think again that's like where the relationship with LeBron is. And again, this is the part that I think is going to be tested, right? That relationship is not just hunky dory and nice. It's a relation that's going to be tested in wins and losses, right? Like it's all fun and games talking, from on a Zoom or however on a StreamYard conversation between them two, was totally different when you're in the huddle and JJ's like, yeah, LeBron, we're running this. He's like, JJ, I don't run that. That's not my play. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic that's about to be created. Anthony Davis knows probably LeBron and JJ have a very nice connection, and like he's got to kind of step into that and make that like a love triangle. It's a very kind of strange situation, right, that the team's in. I was thinking about this today because Paul George just makes himself the center of attention for no reason.
I know what you're going to talk about.
Every single day, he just comes out and says more blasphemy that just you would hope he would learn from. But he came out and said the reason we lost is because we didn't have Rocco and we didn't have Nick Batum.
Yeah,
I like James Harden, but I had to kind of do a little bit more of the work. And obviously, Clipper fans were very quick to go, you didn't guard Luka. Like, we didn't guard Kyrie Irving. You didn't rebound. And you didn't average 20 points a game.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing him to LeBron. I'm saying like this, and like the point of that was you're making 40, whatever Paul George is ludicrous number. You're making $48 million. Like, that's the ask of that player, right? NBA Finals, we just watched. Luka. Awesome, 30 points a game. What's the story from these finals? Luka didn't defend game 1 and 2, right? Like it's just that's the ask. It just is. I'm sorry. Like I'm not saying like LeBron has to do that every single night in the regular season. But I think this idea that you can go 82 games and somehow protect your stars from these. I think that's a false way to go about it. You're going to be in the play-in. You just are. That's how this works. So it'll be interesting to see. I think I like that JJ and LeBron have a previous kind of past notion of like basketball, just respect and acumen. But that will definitely be tested. I think if LeBron wants to take over games, I think that's a good thing. I think that's positive, like especially offensively. I think that's something that like no one's gonna take that away or try to shy away from. Obviously the jump shots sometimes probably need to be dialed in some in some matter. The settling, right, is the word that I think I would
Hmm.
use, that sometimes can really get us in trouble. It's how teams go on, like, it's not just LeBron's fault. It's like a like collective nature of the team when it's just how basketball works. It's the James Harden thing when one guy's dribbling for 10 straight possessions, or even the Luca thing, right? When a guy's dribbling for 10 straight possessions and then all of a sudden now he's double teamed and all your role players are cold. Those are things that like JJ is gonna have to work through. And
Hmm.
JJ as a shooter, I'm sure understands these more than most people going into it. But it'll be interesting, man. Like we're gonna be so like the relationship will never be better than it is today. Like this is like
Absolutely.
right. This will be the best it will be. This is the most, go look at the Darvin Ham quotes from 2 years ago. Like you don't have to go far back to look
Yeah.
at the soliloquies and the mythologies that were being written about the difference between Vogel and Ham, right? And that's
Yeah.
usually how this works. Teams fire a coach and they over index on whatever that last coach didn't have, right? It's kind of Darvin Ham, older, very sturdy coach. And now you bring in JJ Redick, the young upstart, kind of psycho basketball nerd, not nerd, but kind of a basketball kind of psycho encore X's and O's guy. It's just it'll be interesting, for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm with you. I think it'll be interesting to see how long not that we're hoping that the relationship frays, but it'll be. I
Sure,
think the
sure.
wins and losses will dictate a lot of that. Because if they come out average, even like we know how LA media works. Like if you don't come out gangbusters and you start your first 10 games 8-2 or something like that, then they're gonna be like, was this guy really an upgrade? And everybody should be absolutely positive that you should know now, if you're a Laker fan, that there are definitely going to be bumps in the road to start the season. Like we always get, the NBA wants to front load all these crazy divisional matchups at the front because they want people to be excited from October, November, December. So you're gonna, and the IST is there too, obviously as well. So it's like the Lakers aren't gonna. I mean, if they are, then amazing. But I won't be shocked if they're like a few games over 500 or a 500 team for the initial couple months. I would hope that they're
Yeah.
not, but like those stories are going to come out, or those articles of like, oh, was this guy really, was this the right move, that sort of thing. So let's pivot here a little bit, Raj, and start thinking about moving forward, because I know this JJ stuff will come up as we continue doing pods. The Lakers have kind of earmarked a few different assistant coaches: Scott Brooks,
Hmm.
uh, Rajon Rondo, Jared Dudley, Sam Cassell, who I'm hearing Sam Cassell is not going to, probably he might just get a promotion, or take a front of the bench, front like lead assistant coach, because I know
Hmm.
he's very tenured. He wants to be a coach. Um, so it seems like they're doing the same thing that they did with Vogel, where they try to give a strong supporting cast of head coaches, and then add a couple guys that are locker room coaches,
Yep.
that are accountability coaches. And this is a question I asked you before, and I'm not asking you the same question again. I asked you if JJ Redick can keep LeBron accountable, because I think that's a little tough to do. And,
Hmm.
and keep AD accountable, not just LeBron. Keep both of our stars accountable, because there's certainly been times where both of our stars are just kind of no shows to games. Um, I don't know if JJ will do that, because the friendship part, it's hard to do something like that. But I like the idea of adding a guy like Rajon Rondo. I
Me
like
too.
the idea of adding a guy like Jared Dudley, because
Yep.
those are very no nonsense. Dudley's a nice guy, but Rajon seems like he's a little bit of a no nonsense guy that'll challenge both of them. Um, Scott Brooks, great offensive coach. I thought he was a good coach in OKC. Obviously, they went a different direction after some, with Billy Donovan and whatnot, after some time. Um, what do you think about that aspect of coaching and
Yeah.
adding those type of coaches? Because we want
I,
X's and O's guys, we know that. But what about the character guys, the
yeah.
locker
Yeah.
room guys that sounds like the Lakers are targeting?
I honestly, I don't think you need that many X's and O's. Like, I think JJ has that pretty down. Like, I don't really think you need an offensive coordinator in the way that I thought you needed one with Vogel, right? Like in terms of like what Vogel's, not weakness per se, but obviously he was not an offensive type guy. I love the Rondo, if he accepts that. Jared Dudley obviously, just got to the NBA finals with Dallas. See if like he wants to leave that situation. But I like that as well. I like having locker room guys. And I think that's what JJ's biggest adjustment, learning curve will be, is that kind of relationship building. And I think it's very different as a player versus as a coach, right? I think like you can kind of build camaraderie as a player. It's very different trying to get a whole locker room kind of on the same page after a 3-game losing streak, right? Like that's the type
Mhm.
of stuff that I'm sure like JJ as a player during a 3-game losing streak can kind of just put his head down and focus on himself. Can't do that as a coach. As a coach, you got 15 different players to kind of manage. You got other coaches you have to assign jobs to, right? You have to assign tasks to other coaches. Like that's all stuff. And I think that's where Scott Brooks comes in as a former head coach, help you kind of, delegate who to give what to. I like those names. Sam Cassell is so the NBA is such a crazy business. Man, Sam Cassell's been an assistant for like 20 years, still just no head coaching job. And like I think it's crazy how this league works. But I like that name as well. Would he leave? He's in Boston, I believe, still.
Yeah, he's
But I'm just won the championship. I doubt he would come here to come be JJ Redick's assistant. I like that just doesn't pass the test for me, but
Mhm.
would welcome him, hopefully. Obviously Borrego's gonna take a head coaching job, so that's kind of out. But I like those names, man. I would like Dudley, I like Rondo, I like, Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks is just like a head coach, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't have like any positive or negative really. Uh
Scott was actually the guy that I thought they should have added to Darvin's roster.
mm,
When they hired him initially, you know, the whole thing was like, oh, they're bringing Darvin in to manage Russ. I was just like, well, why don't you just get a coach, an assistant? Ask. I think he might have been working for Portland at the time. Maybe that's why they didn't do it. But I was like, you should just
yeah,
go get a guy who has coached Russ before. If you're going to try to make this all work, or when the Vogel thing happened, or whatever it was, like maybe he speaks a language that he understands, but that's all water under the bridge now. Go ahead. I interrupted you. What
no,
were you
I was gonna say like there's some other names like I think Terry Stotts is a name that I guess
Yeah.
like you can go out and get former head coach. We'll see if they want to bring Phil Handy back. Phil Handy just posted a picture of Rui Hachimura today. I guess so. I guess they're working together. So
Yeah.
see if they wanna bring him back into the fold. But
Yeah.
obviously LeBron's main like I guess coach that he works with before games. Stan Van Gundy, another name. Stan Van Gundy, by the way, going through, I'm sure, extremely rough time. Wife just had, a self harm kind of issue. She just had some self harm done to her. So I'm not sure if he wants to jump right back into coaching right now. But
Yeah.
again, another name that I would love. I think Stan and JJ, I guess, are close, and like that's a guy that he's close with. So I would like him as well. But few head coaches, and then I like the kind of locker room control as well. I like those
Yeah.
names.
Yeah. So I think the best part of obviously JJ X's and O's guy, a role player, so you kind of the X's and O's matter more to him because that's what made him effective in the league. I think Rajon, I think of all the names, like I like Scott Brooks because he played, he knows how to work around a team that has two bigs, which is going to lead to the next question that I'm going to ask you, or the next piece of news that's come out. And I think Scott Brooks is a good person for that, in that regards. I like Rajon because I think Rajon will help the role players be able to read adjustments better if that's the role that he
Mm,
has to play. I don't. I think there's a communication gap sometimes. You can't expect LeBron to direct the offense and then also make sure that these guys know how to execute their reads. And I think you need help. AD doesn't seem like the type of guy to do that sort of stuff. And I think role players sometimes need to know that. Like somebody has to tell Rui, if Rui's still on the team, you haven't made your last 3 corner threes. Don't take the corner three. Go to the brim. Like
yeah,
a guy like Rondo is a guy I could see telling him during a timeout, stop taking threes. Go attack the rim. Like they're leaving the lane wide open for you. Like you've got to dunk. And sometimes stuff like that, processing closeouts, processing reads based on a coverage, you need like a guy who's very cerebral in that matter. So I think a guy like Rondo is super helpful in that regards.
yeah, and some different messaging, right? I think JJ can come off a little condescending, I'm sure sometimes. Like I'm sure just
Yeah.
right, like the way he
Yeah.
speaks, and I'm sure like that's where you get an assistant coach kind of like, hey, come here, this is actually what he meant, kind of type of stuff. Again, these are all stuff that you just don't know until someone's like in the chair. But no, I like those names. We'll see if like those guys are the ones that come in, and I don't know how many. Like I honestly don't know how much of those are JJ names versus Laker names. Like it's
Yeah.
very tough to kind of parse through who are they putting on to him versus who he's actually going out and calling. It's a tough thing to kind of to go through. But I like all those names, man. And none of those are ones I would deny. And hopefully just another, head coach, whoever it is. If it's Stan Van Gundy, that's great. Or I think Scott Brooks is fine. I think those are guys that have enough experience, I guess, to give JJ what he needs. It's crazy, man. I know he got announced today. It's just like it's crazy. JJ Redick, like head coach, is just it's kind of crazy to think about, man.
I mean, look, man. Like I said, this is going to be for me. It's going to be entertaining. I have a very different macro view of how I think the rest of this Bronze Laker tenure is going to go, which I don't care to share on the pod, but I think it's going to be entertaining nonetheless. And I'm hoping that we win a lot of games. But it'll be very interesting to see how things go and how things work out. The one thing I will say is this, Raj. They're framing this as a lot of glass half full stuff. And, I think we try to stay measured and be on that side of the spectrum while also acknowledging that this might not go well. And I think there's I think both things are very possible. Like I think that's a stance that we took with Ham. I think that's a stance that we took with Vogel too at the same time. And I don't know what the end result is going to be. Neither of us do. So, but it seems like foundationally, some of the things that need to be checked off are being checked off, and the synergy between the coach and the star players is really important.
For sure. My question, and I'll pose this to you. You don't have to answer this, but like, what is the measure of success this season, right? Like when people come to me and they say like it's championship or bust, and I get that from an organizational messaging standpoint, right? Like I totally understand that. Championship or bust for a rookie head coach, those are almost like oxymoron statements. You know what I mean? Like they're almost like very opposite going statements. So like, what are the expectations there, or like what concludes a successful season, right? Like I think both of us agree. Like we thought Darvin got a little too much, blame put on his plate. 2023 conference finals, whatever you think of that, right? Whatever like you believe that is. I believe 2023 conference finals. I think I have that right. Then fire the next year. Like Frank Vogel won a championship, was fired a year and a half later, right? So what is your measure of success? I think that's again, you don't know until the roster's built, as Shell's bringing up here, but I think that's very interesting. They gave JJ a 4-year deal. They're selling this, you just said, as Pat Riley. I've heard Eric Spoelstra as well as names come up as like comparisons.
That was a surprising name to be compared to. Okay, so can I just say this as a fan, like trying to be fair, again, acknowledging the humanness of what's happening here. You guys, whoever's writing that or telling that to the folks to write, you're putting a lot on JJ now. Like you're comparing him to Pat, and you're also comparing him to Spoelstra, who is one of the only coaches I think I've seen in the history of me watching basketball who can literally take water and turn it into wine. Like he's taking D3, like the way he evaluates players and puts them in a position to be successful. Spoelstra is one of the only guys in the league that I've ever seen where he'll go up to like a max contract player and be like, yeah, you're not playing for 10 minutes straight because you're having a garbage game. And nobody said, I mean, like we've seen Jimmy and him have dust ups and stuff like that during timeouts or whatever. But like, he is the Miami Heat. Like Heat culture is Eric Spoelstra. So when you're making that comparison, or using that analogy, like now you're setting some real expectations. And I don't know if that's fair to say. It sounds cool. Like the fan, like a fan who doesn't pay attention to anything, that's a Laker fan, is gonna be like, oh wow, he's that good. But as soon as he accidentally forgets to call a timeout, or doesn't get a technical, or doesn't challenge a call, that's going to come back to haunt him. So I'm a little worried about the way that it's being framed.
Right. And obviously this is the time where you frame it the best, right? Like you're not gonna get a chance to frame it any better than before, he plays a game or coaches or even says anything at media day. Obviously, I think the Spo comparison is just he's a young coach, right? I mean, I think that's the framing of this. I do think JJ's cut from the like. I don't know if you got to hear Joe Mazzulla on like the low post, if you're able to hear that yet, but Joe Mazzulla is like a very psychotic
Oh
coach
yeah,
that's
he's
very much in the almost to a scary extent. Like it's a little bit like it's almost inhuman a little bit of how he kind of sees
I
things
love
through.
the what was it aren't we all a villain in somebody's eyes or something like
Yes, yeah,
that? I
yeah.
was like, they're gonna win the championship. As he said that, I was like, oh, dude, these guys gonna win, dude. This guy's
No,
insane.
no, my favorite one, I think they were up 3-1, and they were about to play game 5, and obviously the reporter is trying to get a quote for his story, so he goes into like, Joe, we've had Red Auerbach, we've had, all these, and he starts naming legendary Celtics. He's like, Joe, how does it feel to like be in that, conversation? And Joe, straight eyed, like does not make a face and goes, we need to rebound and get back in transition. Like, and like he gives the guy nothing, right? Just zero like thing to work off. It's great. And Joe, again, he's cut from that very cycle cloth, made his way up through the ranks of coaching in the G League, and made his name there. So but yeah, I think JJ's at least cut from that. And honestly, Vinay, to take this job says a lot as well, right? Like, I mean, like, I
Absolutely
think
fair.
like JJ has a very cushy position in media, did not need this, could have very easily went next year doing ESPN games. Like, obviously would have got a raise or whatever it is. Stephen A's in contract negotiations that are somehow playing out publicly. I just don't know what
Dude,
world
that
we've
guy
gotten
is
to.
yeah.
But yeah, so like I think it shows a level of like psycho-ness that you need to have to get this job. And all the successful coaches I think had some of it, right? At least some kind of psycho competitive nature to it that I think JJ has. But we won't know till he coaches first game.
All right, Raja, this is the last topic that I have that we should discuss. The last piece of news that's been coming out. No, it's not about Bronny. We're not going to discuss Bronny because it's very clear that Rich Paul would like to try and get Bronny to the Lakers, but he's not going to, again, force the Lakers' hand to get him to the Lakers. He doesn't want that perception to be that way, so I don't want to discuss that. The Lakers have been talking about using their pick and potentially targeting a big man. We're just using the pick. But I want to take it a step further. And I want to combine this with this JJ Redick topic. You and I have talked offline, like you mentioned. The pod doesn't stop when we stop the pod. We still discuss things afterwards. One of the things you and I have discussed is JJ has played in 2 different offensive styles before. He's played on Dwight's Orlando Magic team, which was 4 out, 1 in kind of basketball. Hito Turkoglu was like the point guard. Jameer Nelson was the point guard for that team. Heavy pick and roll action, shooting all around, forwards that could attack and hit open jumpers. And then JJ's also played for Doc Rivers, which was more of a traditional ball-dominant point guard, Chris Paul, a shooter in JJ Redick, a three-man that's like a Rick Fox type that just kind of does a little bit of everything, but it's not amazing. But he's mainly like your defensive wing guy. They had Blake Griffin, they had DeAndre Jordan, heavy diet of pick and roll for Paul and DeAndre, and then those ISO actions would go to Blake Griffin. The Lakers have also said that they're in the market for a center, a starting caliber center too as well. And hearing all those different things, I've been trying to figure out what kind of offensive style JJ would like to run. And I know that he's modern, analytically sound, all that sort of stuff. But knowing what the Lakers are trying to do, knowing that he's played in both, he's seen success on both of those styles of basketball. And then also looking at what happened in the playoffs recently, the teams with the best defense and the best rebounding were the ones that won. Those are the teams that won their series. They're the ones that won the playoff. Dallas got their butts kicked in the finals, but they were the better defensive team and the better rebounding team, and obviously the better scoring team against Minnesota. And if they're not a good defensive team against Minnesota, Minnesota wins that series. They have to play defense against Anthony Edwards, the Cat, and all those guys. I'm getting the feeling that the Lakers are going to go in that direction. They're going to try and find a starting caliber center, move AD back to the 4. My question to you is this: of all the different things that I mentioned so far, what do you think JJ is going to try to run as the staple structure, the foundational structure of what we want to run um, stylistically
Yeah.
for the Lakers? What do you think that he wants to do?
I mean, if you listen to him, you listen to him talk. I think he very much, is into this modern game of just drive and kick, and very much spacing principles, right? And I think he's going to try to do at least as much. I don't think JJ is a start another big next to AD type guy. I don't think that's his philosophy at all. I think he's trying to space and pace, have the floor space as much for LeBron. I think it's going to be heavy pick and roll. I think it's going to be heavy, very much Boston like, very drive and kick type offense, depending on the personnel, right, that you have. But I think he's going to try to bring that into this, and I think this all kind of combines together with trying to get LeBron a little bit more off ball, right? Have LeBron more as a cutter, as a guy who's able to attack closeouts and things like that. That's the stuff he focuses on. That's the stuff that he likes. That's the stuff that he runs with his, like, I think high school kids or whatever, like the stuff that he tries to implement there. And not that, that will translate right away, but I think he's a very modern philosophy type guy. So I expect a lot of like pace and space basketball, very much high pick and roll type basketball, leverage AD as a screener, right? I think AD is a 5 to him. I think I've heard him say that. I believe that AD is a center, but I don't think they're gonna start another center next to him. Do you agree? I know AD has kind of vouched for that, but I don't think that's JJ's wheelhouse. That's like a more of a Vogel thing. That's more of like an old school type of thing. I don't think they're gonna go. I think they're gonna go get another center. I don't know. They'll get another starting center. Do you disagree with that? Like they're gonna go get a starting center? You think to put next to AD?
I don't know. So starting center can go both ways. A starting center can be somebody who's taller than Vando, can rebound just as well, but is skinny, and can rim protect. I'm just giving examples of names. Not saying that this is who they're targeting, but Jalen Smith from Indiana is an example of a guy. Chris Boucher is an example of a guy. Not guys that can shoot, but guys who run the floor super hard. Will attempt to block shots or deter shots at the rim, but won't necessarily be in the way of the offense because they'll screen and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if JJ is advocating for a starting caliber center. I think that's going to be a Rob Pelinka decision. I think the roster construction is going to dictate a lot of what it is, and I think the reason why we're hearing about the Lakers possibly looking at a big man in the draft is because they might think that, if we can get a big man that can knock down jump shots. Now, mind you, Colin Castleton has been just played a whole season in the G League. His agent is also Austin Reeves' agent. You and I were both high on Castleton when we drafted him. I watched it. I think he was at Florida. I watched a little bit of him at Florida, and I was like, he's not necessarily a great shooter, but he really moves the ball, and he's a willing screener. And one of the things that I've always thought about in basketball is if you can't make shots, you have to move. You can't be a guy who stands in the corner because you're just useless then at that point. And I think if the Lakers don't draft somebody, or if they don't find like a starting caliber guy that's, I don't know, obviously Miles Turner is the guy that's every Lakers fan look for. But like if they can't find a Clint Capella type or blah, 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 all that sort of stuff, I think they're going to try and give Castleton a test. If not as a backup big, maybe next to AD, just to see what it looks like. Because you have to remember, there's this infatuation in the NBA that your jump shooting equals making 3-point shots. That's not what jump shooting is. Jump shooting can be just make a free throw line jumper. Can you space out the floor enough for a free throw line jumper to be effective, or like a baseline jumper to be effective? So if Castleton can knock down some of those, that'd be great. If Lakers can find somebody who can knock down some of those, that would be great too. And he's a true 7-footer, I think, and or close to a true 7-footer. Can block shots, big body, mobile, runs up and down the floor, moves the ball, doesn't let it get stuck in his hands, doesn't stand still in one spot the entire time. I think that might be a direction that the Lakers might consider to go because you know this. The folks in the Discord know this. I don't think Braun at the 4 works because you're asking him to rebound and box out guys who are going to go out of their way to be more physical with him, to wear him down over the course of the game. And I don't know if that long term is good for Braun to keep him fresh.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why the Lakers have to go in that direction.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some names that like I've heard Vucevic as well, right? Another
Mm-hmm.
guy that maybe kind of helps you out, gives you a little bit of the shooting, is also like a really good rebounder. I guess they can
Mm-hmm.
go in. I'm not the biggest Vucevic fan, but I would kind of understand it. Miles Turner's a guy that I liked. The Pacers just paid Siakam today, I believe. Siakam just
Yeah, he
extended
got his
for whatever
max contract. Yep.
got his max deal. So they've been a notoriously cheap team. I would at least call about Turner if you can. Castleton, watched a lot of him in South Bay. I do like his game. I think there's a level of physicality in the NBA that he's just like a tier below yet. I think he'll get there. And we'll see what this year. I know he talked about Revived is saying he talked about improving his jump shot. It's definitely had something he needed to work on for sure. So hopefully that's real. And he has great touch, great passer, good screener. Him and JHS was a lot of fun actually to watch in South Bay. So I like giving that a shot. I think going to next year, like thinking Castleton is like an actual guy you can play next to AD and in minutes is tough so far going into just year 2 for him, where he didn't really play a lot of NBA minutes this year. Got in very few games, I believe, in garbage time, but I think that's like the first domino to see like what route they want to go, right? And it's definitely some of the trades that are involved. If you go get like a DeJounte Murray, another non-shooter, I would put it, Vinay, right? Like I think DeJounte is not
Yep.
like a real spacer type guy, very much another on-ball guard. I think it's very pointed that you have shooting on the other positions, and like that's already taken away with AD and then LeBron shooting. So I think it just changes the way you kind of have to build. But this all depends on the roster. If they want to go big and physical and with size, I think there's a route there as well. I guess Andre Drummond's out there, or like just to get like a nominal center to put in the starting lineup and stuff like that. But I just don't see that as like JJ's team build philosophy. It like just does not go with what I would assume he's with, which is space, shooting, driving kick, very modern type basketball.
Yep.
But we'll see what they do. Free agency
Yeah.
is what, like 2-3 weeks? It's
I mean,
crazy.
dude, it's already started. That
Right,
was actually
right.
I lied to you. I was going to ask you your thoughts on one thing because I know this is going to be very emotional for you.
Oh my God.
But free agency's already started. Siakam's already agreed. Malik Monk is agreeing to stay with the Sacramento Kings, which is important for Laker fans if you're paying attention because Malik Monk, I think our guy Eric Pincus wrote about Orlando targeting Malik Monk as a potential shooting, like a guy that can help with the shooting on the roster. With Malik staying in Sacramento, that doesn't leave too many guys that are, outside threats. The reason why it's relevant for Laker fans is because D'Lo was one of the guys that was rumored to potentially be, a target with their cap space for that. And so we'll see how that all sort of works out. So just something to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to it. But there was a much more notable transaction that happened today. A trade. 2 days. Well, I mean, we've had no time. I mean, it's a good thing that we've had no time to acknowledge whoever won the championship this year in the NBA. I don't even know who it is. We're jumping right into transactions. There was a trade today, Raj. Alex Caruso was traded to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. And I wouldn't say it's like a minor trade. It's a pretty major trade if you think about it, because Alex Caruso is an all defensive player. A guy that Laker fans thought that he didn't get the respect that he deserved on the Lakers team, magically gets respect on the Chicago Bulls, and then somehow gets traded for absolutely 0 picks. OKC adds a very multi-positional defender, tough guy, tough rebounding guy, does all the if you're a big fan of Josh Hart, like does the Josh Hardy sort of stuff, rebounding and do the dirty work that the Lakers really like. And other teams really like to do stuff Paul George doesn't want to do. Does the dirty work stuff, and they got him for just Josh Giddey. Which, I mean, if you're high on Josh Giddey, then I could understand. Chicago is apparently, but he went for no picks, and the word was that Chicago wanted 1-2 first rounders, multiple picks for Caruso. how are you processing? Talk to me about your emotions. Process your emotions.
I just
Live on this stream for public consumption about Alex Caruso getting traded.
First of all, like 2 straight teams just completely undervaluing Alex Caruso is just absolutely absurd to me. I just don't understand what is going on in these front offices that they don't. And again, like at least I'm not giving the Lakers bail on this because they should have known on their damn court. But Alex Caruso got the notoriety. Like the NBA gave Alex Caruso a first team all defense on a Bulls team that was like the seventh. Like, you understand how good you got to be defensively to get those type of awards on the seeds that the Bulls were coming into every year. And this trade, you just said if you're high on Josh Giddey, if you're high on Josh Giddey, like I don't know anyone that watched OKC Mavs this season and was like, man, if you just free Josh Giddey, I don't know anyone who was saying that. Like, I think to me, half the reason OKC lost that series because Dallas's whole game plan was let Josh Giddey have the ball, let him score. We're gonna double team Shea at the top of the key. We're gonna give help on Jalen Williams every single time and make him kick out to Josh Giddey in the corner. Mark Dagenham bench Josh Giddey in Game 4, which is 3 games too late. If you listen to Thunder fans, this trade I just cannot. OKC has like 15 first round picks at their disposal. You couldn't get one of those. I don't understand what Chicago's doing. This trade is almost investigatable to me. Like it's something that I honestly, like I think they should be investigated. Like I think they need to look in and figure out what in the world do they see. You already have Kobe White on the team. Like
Yeah.
you have your on-ball guard, and they had offers for Alex Caruso that were top 10 picks this season, and they said they wanted to go into a more win now move. This is not a win now move. You're getting Josh Giddey at 21 years old, who's not ready for that, who can't shoot. You somehow got less spacing. Like you lost Caruso and got less shooting. Like it baffles my mind. Caruso is one of the best defensive players in the league. This is more Drew to Boston than I think people realize. I like Drew. I think Drew's good. I think he's. I'm not gonna say that here, but like I Drew Holiday is a fine player. But this is just like OKC basically replaced Josh. They did. They replaced their starting 2 guard that had no business starting on that team for Alex Caruso. You as the cap, like you follow the cap and the rules. Like, is there anything with this trade that makes sense for Chicago? Like,
no, from a basketball talent perspective, there's the only thing that would make sense is that the Chicago front office really thinks they're like really high on Josh Giddey. Like that's the only way they think there's some upside with him that we don't see. Like, and look, Giddey might there is always that other part of it where he does becoming turns into a real player. I think Woj framed it. Woj does this thing where he basically has like the front office of the team that's the losing side of the trade write the actual tweet for him. And I think he wrote that Chicago gets this really great replacement for Lonzo Ball, basically is the way that they positioned it. And, I think Chicago fans are like, what? Like, like we have Kobe White, we have AO on the team, Levine's still there, DeMar may come back, that sort of thing. Like, how are we fitting this guy in, with what do we need him for ball handling when we have all these guys that need the ball in their hands, essentially? So maybe Chicago has more moves coming. Maybe they're basically going to rebuild without broadcasting it, and this could be the first step. But again, I don't know how you didn't get a first round pick out of it. Like OKC has a lot of first round picks. Not all of them are good. Like a lot of them are like heavily protected and stuff like that. It's the volume of first round picks is just it's a sexy number to throw out there. You couldn't get any of those. That's kind of crazy that you couldn't get any of those.
Forget the first round picks, man. They have like 20 second rounders.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get a second, like you couldn't get a single other. It's almost like Josh Giddey was the asset in this trade. Like it just it baffles my mind. I really don't get it. The whole league knew, like that was the worst kept secret in the league that OKC needed to trade Josh Giddey this summer. Some of it not for basketball reasons, like some of it for very much non-basketball reasons that people can research into. But yeah, you could there's no way if you scour the league that's the best you have for Alex Caruso. That's not even not even the best prospect on OKC, not named Shea and Jalen Williams. I'd rather have Kason Wallace. I would rather like go get. Obviously, OKC probably was like, you're not getting Kason Wallace. So so like Josh Giddey's the guy that was available. this trade is just, it makes zero sense to me. And OKC is going to extend Caruso or whatever it is. But like pay Caruso and then trade him later. Like what was the rush to do
Easy.
this?
Yeah.
What's the rush to do this now? Like why lose the player for nothing? Again, OKC, just the rich get richer, I guess. One seed that, adds this talent, and Caruso and Lou Dort are, I think, going to be absolutely hell to play against. And you pair that with Shea and obviously Chet Holmgren going into year 2. I'm at a loss for words. And I've seen way too many people defend this from Chicago's perspective.
I don't follow that many Chicago people, so I haven't seen the other part. Everybody that I follow from Chicago side, they're like, we don't understand why you just traded a productive player for a project if you're
Yeah,
trying to compete.
I've seen that Caruso gets hurt, I guess. Like he has like some
which
injury
was a thing for the Lakers too as well. For
Sure.
Laker fans that don't know, that was one of the things that the Lakers had. You're seeing that with Vando now. Just FYI, like Vando, 65 games is a lot of games in a regular season, especially when you have to take elbows to the face and stuff like that. But the reason why you're hearing Vando in trade rumors, one of the reasons why, is durability. Like if we can't, remember, we're not on, as much as we like to say we're on AD's timeline, we're not. We're on LeBron's timeline. So if you're not able to play games, you're expendable. That's just kind of how it works. And that was a Caruso thing. But go ahead.
We're not sure. Vando missed the whole year. You know what I mean? Like I don't. I think that's why he's not in these conversations. But no, man, to watch Alex Caruso walk to the OKC Thunder for basically nothing. That was almost worse than the championship that wasn't won this week. Like that was like, it's very close for me. That absolutely ruined my day. It's almost like I forgot about the JJ Redick stuff. I just like completely moved to this. I didn't even know trades were legal yet. I didn't even know you can like go ahead and like start making trades or have them official yet. It's just yeah, that one sucks. And now OKC fans get to spread the Caruso gospel in a way that
yeah. And now that they get to, I mean, some OKC, I'm friends with OKC fans. They're always nice to me. So probably because I'm a Russ guy, but now we get another fan base that can say that they found Alex Caruso, and they're, take all the credit for this. It is what it is. I don't know how. Dude, there were some trades that happened that I was just like, bro, how did, like the Kristaps Porzingis trade? Like, I was just like, okay, they traded nothing for him. Okay,
they got 2 firsts for him, right? Like, I mean, they got first round picks from
Kristaps. That was crazy. Boston, before they made the trade for Drew Holiday, if you remember when they traded for Malcolm Brogdon, they traded like nothing. They traded like scraps, like just salary filler, and I think like a late first round pick for Malcolm Brogdon. He gets hurt. They flip him for Drew Holiday, who ends up being, a pivotal guy for that team. And it just, look, credit to those front offices. They find ways to make marginal improvements that can make the difference between, being a good team and a great team.
I guess last thing, I just wonder how much of this is because those teams get to operate at a level of like anonymity that the Lakers really just never get to, right? I'm not saying, I'm not excusing the Laker like front office or like, I just feel like every Laker move gets like handled in such a public forum, and like no one had any idea this Alex Caruso and Josh Giddey conversation was even happening. But like here, it would be 10 rumors that come out, and it would be like 30, right? And like this could be from the other team kind of leveraging as well, but it'd be like, oh, like, okay, just scenario. Oh, Lakers are interested in Alex Caruso again. Like Lakers called about Alex Caruso, right? And again, I'm not in the behind the scenes side, and I'm not sure how this works, but some of that, I'm sure, like the rumored trade for last year at the deadline, whatever, that was rumored, right? It was like the Lakers are talking to Utah, and that stuff come out before the trade actually happened, and OKC gets to run in the dark basically, and just yeah, let me tell you guys what just happened. I'm like, okay, and they report the story. There's no sourcing, there's no rumors, there's nothing. It just comes out. So I don't know. It's
a double-edged sword of being this franchise. So I mean, when we're winning, we get to gloat and everybody hates us, but we're winning. But the other part is, I mean, as you've seen with like the coaching saga, like 2 national tier reporters are like beefing over the news. Like who's going to break it first? Who's actually telling the truth about the Lakers coaching search? Like the information even on a local level, is gold. Like we have aggregation accounts and local insiders who want to break stories and get interviews with players, and like it's just it's just what comes with the franchise and whatnot. Last thing I'll ask you, Raj, before I get your last take, I'm going to give you one trade scenario I want to ask you, and you tell me how you feel about this trade scenario. And this is going along the theme of making marginal improvements, doing things where we upgrade somebody who's in this specific position that we think that can help us a little bit more. We do have to give something up to get them, but maybe this is a better step forward. I'm going to give you one trade this time. I didn't do 3 trades because I think it's hard to do 3 trades. I'm going to give you one trade for it. The Lakers trade Gabe Vincent in the 17th pick to the Memphis Grizzlies for Marcus Smart and the 39th pick. Would you do that trade?
Gabe Vincent in the 17 for Marcus Smart and 39. I think I don't do that trade. I don't think I'm as high as on Marcus Smart as I guess. I think Marcus Smart's a fine player. I think I'd rather have the 17 and try to work something around that. That's an interesting one. I'm just not a big Marcus Smart guy, I guess. Where are you at? Would you do that deal?
I think if we lose D'Lo, I don't like the idea of trading the 17th pick, because my biggest pushback about this trade was about the idea, detraction from it, I guess is the right word to use, is I think we can find an impact guy. I think our scouts can find an impact guy at the 17th pick who might be equally impactful, and obviously on a rookie scale contract. But if we had to trade the pick, for whatever reason we have to trade the pick to make a marginal upgrade, I think Marcus fits a backcourt of Marcus Smart and Austin Reeves. Is a nice yin and yang offensive defensive sort of complement. He can defend multiple positions, dirty work guy, willing to do dirty work stuff.
Sure.
It gives the Lakers the flexibility of, if Vando's on the team. I remember these trade scenarios are assuming like D'Lo's gone because he's opted out or whatever. It gives you the opportunity where now you can maybe move Vando out of the starting lineup and not have to worry about a defensive or rebounding drop off, that sort of thing. And you get a 39th pick, which we kind of know who the Lakers would probably want to draft with that 39th pick. And you can find second round talent. I trust our scouts to find somebody. And then obviously the cap hit for the salary cap folks is much lower versus somebody who's at the 17th pick. So that extra cap room that you get by using 2 second round picks instead of that 17th pick and that second round pick might afford you a vet minimum guy that you might think is impactful.
I like Smart. I'd like at least a guy who's just a tad better ball handler, right? Like just a little. Again, that's a tough ask. Smart's defense is kind of, I think, the sell here. You have a very defensively versatile guy. I just think next to Austin, I'd like one more guard that's a little bit more ball handling. But I understand that trade. If they did that trade, I wouldn't be, upset. I would understand it. I think I'd rather have my 17. I think they would still draft Bronny at 55, right? I'm guessing 39. They would be able to find
it's nice when you're drafting Bronny at the top of the second as opposed to like right at the end of the draft. Like I think the media theatrics behind like the Rich Paul, we didn't talk about it, but like Rich Paul, this is now the second time or the third time now where he's just like, well, I don't care where Bronny gets drafted. I want him to go to the best place. And I think I saw a video on Twitter, which was, I thought it was kind of unprofessional, but I get it. Like this is what people in media do, but like the draft experts coming out and saying, yeah, like I draft Bronny in the 3rd round, like joking about him not being not even being a guy that should be drafted, which I understand, like there's some basketball folks that, but I was like a young kid. I don't know how I feel about saying something like that, like on a national level podcast, but
sure.
that was my thought, like that you get a little bit more cap room to utilize by taking somebody at the early 2nd round that you might think that is a lottery talent, that sort of thing. But I think valid. I think your point is valid. a better ball handler, somebody who's can help LeBron out in that respect. Maybe somebody who can initiate the offense, run the offense
Right.
in
Yeah.
a more typical fashion. I was just thinking about it from complimenting in Austin.
Sure. I
Austin,
mean, it'd be a fine fit. I don't think
yeah.
it couldn't work. I just would like a little bit better player, and I just would rather have the first rounder, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, that's fair. I think that's entirely fair. I think my only thought on this draft is um, if there's no stars in this draft, which there might be, we might just not know that. But if you can find a high impact role player,
Hmm.
that's still very good. Like that,
Sure.
that's like that's a big deal on a rookie scale contract. That's a big deal. And so I think that's a good way of framing it. Raj, that's everything I have. Do you have it? What's your last take? What do you want to leave us with before we
Yeah.
let the crowd go?
I think it's pretty much it, man. Welcome to JJ Redick era, I guess, in basketball. I hope he coaches summer league. I think that's always a cool tradition when new coaches go and kind of
Mhm.
ingratiate themselves. Luke Walton didn't do it, which I was kind of sad about. Frank Vogel also did not do it. Did not come and coach the rookie year, but a lot of head coaches kind of come and do that. And I'll be interested to see if JJ does that himself, or if we get like Jared Dudley. I believe Dudley coached our summer league team
I
2 years ago.
I think you might be right.
I think he was,
Can't
yeah.
remember him.
And then he wanted to be a real coach, and the Lakers said no. So he went back
Yeah.
and he went
Yes.
and no, he didn't. He didn't coach our summer league team because he was never an assistant for us.
I mean, honestly, Raj, between the gambling and the late nights, I can't remember half of the stuff that happened in summer league game. But
Right, yeah. A lot
anyways,
of people
yeah,
aren't there for basketball for sure.
yeah,
But
yeah. Those dice are always calling me, brother. It's hard to say no to
right,
them.
right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Sounds like free agency is on the way. That the people are already making trades and agreeing to contracts, and summer league is going to be here very, very soon in about 2-3 weeks. And so it's going to be exciting to see what happens. And the draft is coming up even faster than that. The draft is here, I think, next week or like the week
Hmm.
after, early week after. So we'll get some. I think we might get a frenzy of moves and agreements and whatnot, and everything will be underway. So as always, folks, we appreciate you. If you joined us from the very start, or if you ended up, joining midway through, you can always go to Raj's timeline or my timeline and replay it if you want. Or if you subscribe to Lakers Detailed on Apple and Spotify, I'll get this uploaded on there, and you can watch the video pod if you'd like, or listen to us on your drive, or whatever you like to do when you're listening to Lakers analysis. But as always, we appreciate you, and we appreciate anything that you do, whether it's like, share, and subscribe. And we hope that whether you're listening to this now, later in the day or the evening, we hope you have a wonderful day. And if nothing else, we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.